Wow, look at the yen, 85 and change.
Yeah, it's a big number for this currency, especially as you say, 15-year low. It is, a lot of people are rightly asking why it's where it is and where it's going to go from here.
Yeah, and what about the Bank of Japan intervening here? Everyone's looking at intervention. Do you think that's possible?
I mean, the BoJ policy has traditionally been to intervene in the currency only when it's expressed huge volatility. Now, that a one-directional move is not volatility. So I think if you're anticipating any BoJ intervention here, even the BoJ can't pump US dollars and other currencies into the market to support the yen. It just won't do it. What it will do is try and stabilize the market direction. But the direction of the yen is very stable, and it's going up.
Yeah, what about those exporters we mentioned, you know, the likes of Toyota, Honda, Panasonic? I mean, they have raised their profit forecast, which is kind of dependent on where the yen goes. So if we're looking at 85, that's going to crimp profits, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I think from a specific company point of view and from the exporter point of view, you've got, as you say, Toyota, Honda, all the car manufacturers and tech that they do necessarily have to make a yen assumption, but they are very well experienced in handling yen moves and yen strength, and it's not a surprise that the yen is up here. Certainly those profit forecasts are based on a particular exchange rate, but they will accommodate that, and after that exchange rate hits a minimum level, they will have to implement hedging options. Now that generally will imply a high in the yen, at least in the medium term, once people start accounting for it and are less worried about it.
Okay, so with the yen at 85, then are there any shorting opportunities or even buying opportunities in the market?
I think the opportunities for, firstly, I believe the yen is going to continue to strengthen. So I would think that buying yen-based assets, particularly government debt, is a very good reason. I don't normally, in fact, I hardly ever advocate bonds. I'm involved in equities,
You're not a bond kind of guy.
I'm not a bond kind of guy.
Yeah.
But the actual, if you factor into account the depreciation or deflation rather in Japan, the real yield on Japanese government debt is about 1.7%. The absolute level is 1%, or the published level. But if you count in decrease in prices, this is actually one of the reasons why the yen's going the way it's going. You have a lot of foreign investment pumping money into Japan and into the euro. The euro's gained 13% since May against the dollar. The yen only 6 or 7. So there's plenty of upside if you're based outside of Japan and you're a government body, China, for example, and you have to diversify out of US denominated debt.
But
the yen is a safe place.
Is there risk in the recovery in Japan because we got those current account numbers this morning, which contracted? Yeah,
well, I think those current account numbers are almost definitely a reflection of the strength in yen. Obviously, less money. They actually take into account balance of payments as well as trade data. So there's going to be, yes, yen moving into the economy as the yen strengthens naturally. Now, the actual equivalent foreign currency demand is probably relatively stable. Maybe it's off a little bit from the US, but the economic situation in Japan is currently, certainly from the longer term, as we know, is pretty poor. That's why so many people, I think, ignore it. Right. But it's from a medium-term perspective on the yen, we're going to continue to see strength. Now, the shorting opportunities, as you mentioned, I think from an equity perspective, basing your short on the direction of a much bigger picture, i.e. the currency, is tantamount to financial suicide. I think you're going to get taken out. We've already seen people short some of the exporters on the back of yen-based trades. Now, depending on your tolerance for losses, that can work, and Japan has been coming off quite a lot, but it's coincidental. I think so. Shorting simply because of a yen move, I think, is quite a dangerous scenario.
Okay, so you don't want to be doing that.
No, well, you actually have to position ahead. You have to know what's going to happen overnight. So you could sell Nikkei and Topix ahead if you knew the yen was going to strengthen half a yen, because it's always going to see foreign profit taking. Like today, it's down. It's down because the yen's stronger, but you can't actually place that bet in real time. So the data you get is kind of misleading.
Okay.
You can't bet overnight on the yen. If you could, you shouldn't be shorting equities. You should be buying yen overnight. That's
interesting, Ben. So you're saying buy bonds even though you're ahead of the equities. Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks for joining us.